must be clear that violence and crime and looting and burning cannot and will not be condoned and must be stopped. It must be equally clear that the conditions that breed crime and violence have to be sought out and rooted out with the same tenacity and the same courage. Now, this relationship between law and order on the one hand and social justice on the other must be made plain to every American. And if I'm permitted to have the opportunity to lead this country, there will be my ideas as I glean them also from others, as I tap the wisdom of the people of this country and the experience of this country.
To win the nomination next week.
Let's take a look, however, what happened when it came to picking his running mate. And I want to be quite clear about it. The running mate's a fine gentleman. But the point is not what kind of a man he is, but who dictated the choice. Was it Nelson Rockefeller? No, my friends. Was it John Lindsay? No. Was it Chuck Percy? No. Was it even Barry Goldwater? No. No, I'll tell you who it was. It was the man when in 1948 I stood before the Democratic Convention and asked the Democratic Party to walk out of the shadow of states' rights and into the bright sunshine of human rights. It was that man who looked at the exit sign and got up and walked out with the Dixiecrats. That's the man, and that's the man who today Mr. Nixon took by the arm, and they walked arm in arm up to the podium of the Republican Party, and it's the man who Mr. Nixon said, he is my leader in the South. Do you remember those days when they used to say, clear it with Sidney? Well, how about clear it with Strom?
Richard Nixon came to Illinois today for the first in a series of meetings with Republican leaders and talks with voters, preaching the gospel of party unity, which he thinks will... Illinois' most prominent Republican, of course, is Abraham Lincoln. Nixon quoted Lincoln from the Capitol steps and then paid a visit to the tomb to lay a wreath. Local Republican leaders have billed Nixon's appearance here as his campaign kickoff. It isn't really that. No formal kickoff for the campaign is planned. But Nixon did, in this Republican shrine, strike two themes which will be central to his campaign. First, his desire...
No. Well, we feel very, very good, and I think you can see that both Mrs. Humphrey and I come to Chicago with the kind of spirit that characterizes this city, one of confidence and also one of great gratitude to all of our friends and supporters. I think this is going to be not only an interesting convention, which you already know, but I think it's going to be one that will cap the climax of many years of public service, and we can go on now to carry the message of our country to the American people and of the Democratic Party to the American people.
Are you worried about the divisions that have emerged this week by President the various cities of the convention?
No, I'm not worried. I always am concerned when we have difficulties, but I think you've attended other Democratic conventions, and I've never known a time that Democrats came to a convention without stirring up a certain amount of commotion. It sort of gets us in practice. It loosens us up for the main event.
Mr. President, are you satisfied that Mr. Johnson will not be a candidate at this convention?
I think Mr. Johnson has spoken very frankly about that. I don't think there's any doubt as to his position.
There must be a reconciliation between the generation of the young and that of the old, between men who seek knowledge for its own sake and those who seek it for the sake of practical action, between white people and black people, between people who dwell in the cities and those who dwell elsewhere, between those who share in our affluence and those who do not, between society and government. In this task of reconciliation, let us by all means insist on the rule of law. Let us by all means strengthen the authority and the fabric of law by entwining it with justice, with equity, and with compassion. Let us by all means enlist our full strength for a frontal assault on the real evils that beset us. But on this very point, let us also beware of flying to the extremes of controversy, where from some lofty motives we draw apart from each other in an endless chain of secession until each man discovers he stands alone in a war against every other man.
So my earnest plea to you this morning is to write a platform in the field of urban affairs that makes its first consideration the health and welfare of the United States of America, regardless of whether it's politically advantageous or disadvantageous to the fortunes of the Democratic Party. In your platform deliberations on urban affairs and all the great problems facing this country, please remember that this is the year 1968. Please remember that we are in a space age and in the age of instant communication. Please remember that the American people today are the most educated voters in all history, that they simply will not accept the platitudes and bromides that went down so easily 25 years ago.
But it would not be a mistake, Mr. Chairman, for the Democratic Party to state in its platform its willingness to support our government in taking such calculated risks as halting the bombing if such a risk will improve the chances of an early peace. I think it is appropriate and desirable for us to call for NLF participation in the second stage of negotiation and in elections following the end of the conflict. I do not think it would be consistent with our objectives of free choice in Vietnam to insist that the present Vietnamese government be changed to include NLF participation prior to election. We should take every precaution, directly or indirectly, to ensure a free choice, but we should not dictate the composition of the government.
The Illinois delegation has had a long session in which everyone, as typical with the spirit of the democracy of Illinois, was given an opportunity to present their candidates and the views and reasons who the delegate should support. And the roll call is the following: 112 delegates for the next President of the United States, Hubert Humphrey. And we will not be stampeded by the booing and shouting. Young men and young women and old men and young women, this is Chicago, this is America. Be enthusiastic for your candidate, but don't attempt to stop any other man or woman to speak out for this candidate. And unite behind a man that will carry out the policies of Kennedy